Hi, how you doing? And welcome back to the video on the channel. Just before we get started, any likes and subscribes, greatly appreciated. Had a couple of new subscribers, so thank you for that, and thank you for the positive feedback on things like the graphics and that. Always trying to improve. It's a slow process, but we keep moving. So thank you. Yeah, so we're going to get into it. Just a quick review of Game Week 6 before we get into Game Week 7. So here is what we've got so far. So my Game Week 6 review, a red arrow, and it wasn't great as well. Only a red arrow of about 80k, but they all still count, and the people in front are getting further and further away, and it's just something you don't want. Okay, so we're trying to make some moves, thinking about what we should do. So any help is appreciated, and we'll start off with Henderson. Him and Williams at half time in the Forest game. I was absolutely buzzing. Assist for Williams with the pen and clean sheet on the cards. Home to Bournemouth, 2-0 up. But you cut to full time and they conceded three. Williams still got 4 points, but it's frustrating with the Forest defensive errors. There were some unforced errors in that game, and it just cost us. And it's the sort of game where you could have had, I'm sure Williams might have been in the bonus points. You could have had about 10 more points there than what I had. Same with Fafana. I brought him in for Gomez, who Joe Gomez ended up getting 9 points, I think, which is just typical. And, I also use my transfer, which means I don't have the flexibility to use the funds for this week. There's not really anything I can do, I don't think, at the moment. Trent is the story of the season so far, with Liverpool taken off after 55 minutes, so no clean sheet, and 1 point was just grim, to be honest. Still thinking of hanging on to him, but he's really pushing it at the moment. And, Liverpool in general, it's not great. I guess the potential to get 17 points like he did a couple of weeks ago at any moment is what's making me keep him. And Cancelo, Man City have still got 3 clean sheets in 6 games, so they're on track for 19 clean sheets this season. So, what are we expecting? 38 clean sheets. I think we all just need to keep our expectations in check sometimes. It's not always going to go how we want. And I think people are kind of moving around a bit too fast. And, it's also affecting price changes. Moving on to the midfield, and we'll start with Son. And speaking of expectations, to me, is Son the most unlucky player right now? Against West Ham, the defender scored the own goal, but if he hadn't tapped it in, Son would have done. He was right behind him sliding in. And at the weekend, Son hit the post or hit the bar. He had one goal disallowed, and he crossed it in, and Kane missed it, but Kane was offside. Um, and it got ruled out. And then he passed to Richarlison, who also hit the post. I was just thinking another season, that'd be 4 returns in 2 games, and people would be really high on Son. I just think he's so unlucky at the moment. Now, Salah, I was feeling really rubbish. I think about my team after Saturday lunchtime, that lunchtime kickoff, because we'd had Trent. Um, it got taken off early. I'd missed out on the Joe Gomez points. I had captain Salah, and he'd gone and blanked. And I think at those points, it's just important to remember that it's just a game. Everyone's going to have those moments throughout the season. And I still think Salah will score well consistently. He's just been unlucky so far. Alongside Trent, we have Jack Harrison in terms of he got taken off at half time, which wasn't ideal. I need to monitor it going forward. Since I got him in, he's not got any returns. He had a return in his first 3 games, and I don't think he's got anything in his last three. But on the plus side, we did have Saka. I still think he's underrated in FPL, in my opinion. He got the goal. He would have had another assist for Martinelli's disallowed goal, which some people thought should have stood. Bit of a soft foul in the middle of the park. And he has 4 attacking returns in 6 games, which is great, and it's the same as Martinelli. I know obviously Martinelli is 1.5 million cheaper, or he was originally, or he was originally 2 million cheaper, but he's about 1.5 now. But still, I think people are only, Saka's only lost in price because of Martinelli. I think if Martinelli hadn't done as well, people would still be sticking on Salah. I think it's just the more value, which obviously makes sense. But I just think, people aren't really talking about Salah's return as Saka's returns as much as they maybe should be. Into the strike force then, and Ivan Toney saved my weekend. and obviously would have been the best person to captain by an absolute mile when you look at the rest of the scores on there. But hindsight plays a big part in all of this, and looking back, maybe I should have done, but Salah against Everton was just too good to pass up, and unfortunately, it just didn't work out. But I knew he was looking good, and he actually went down in price in the midweek before the other game. Went from 7.2 to 7.1. I think about 600,000 people took him out, which to me is just ridiculous. And he's already gone back up in price again now. And I don't see why people took him out with the fixtures he had. I think if you'd watched Brentford play, you would absolutely know that he was playing really well. He just maybe wasn't getting the goals, but he was definitely getting the chances and, in fact, having goals disallowed. Jesus just the 1 point, and he's potentially going out, I think. Whenever I decide to wildcard, I'm not even sure if that's gonna be this week at the moment. He's gone back down in price, but to be honest, I'm really over price rises and falls. I kind of refuse to be restricted in transfers for fear of losing value. I think if you're making transfers solely on missing out on point 0.1 of a million here or there, if at the end of the day, you've just got to keep getting the players that you can afford that you think are going to score the best, and you've got to play with that freedom and not thinking, oh, I don't want to transfer out this player because I've got 0.2 million in profit tied up in him, and if I want him back, it's going to cost me this much more than what I sell him for. You've got to go with the players that you think are going to score best, and if you get some transfer profit along the way, great. Um, if you don't, that's just how it is. But you couldn't transfer out Jesus this week because you're fearing losing, zero point 0.1 million when he's got a good fixture coming up. I just think, you can't let that dictate your decisions. Anyway, so we're gonna not much from the bench there either. I was right to bench the players I did, to be honest. Although Ben White scored 1 point, Andrea scored two. That you could have swapped them for someone that scored one. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. And so yeah, got our fixtures here. In terms of captaincy, I think with Man City playing Spurs, I still feel like you could get away with captaining either Haaland or Kane. I think if you look at that, both teams can concede goals. Both teams can absolutely score goals. And I think that game is potentially going to be very open. Would I captain someone like Cancelo? Absolutely not. But I think from an attacking point of view, they're definitely worth a look. I don't see that game being very tight. I could easily see it be, 2-all, 3-2, something like that, either way. I think if you want a more straightforward selection in terms of fixtures, you could maybe go for Salah or Jesus. Both of those have good games. Liverpool playing Wolves, I think, is something which needs targeting possibly. And then you've also got Jesus at home to Everton. Although they kept a clean sheet against Liverpool, Arsenal will be looking to bounce back against after the defeat against Man United. But I think if you think Tony can continue his form from last weekend, I don't see why not him away at Southampton. Southampton aren't looking great, and as a sort of still a differential captain, I mean, you think, oh, why would I captain Ivan Toney? But you look back at the points we've just seen. If you'd captained him last week, he would have got you 34 points. So that's why you could captain him. Sometimes it's not always the big hitters, especially if the big hitters aren't on good form. The signs for teams like Liverpool are there, and while Salah can always score, they're clearly not on form. So why not captain someone like Tony? Why not captain someone on form with still a good fixture, Brentford playing well? So yeah, that's the captaincy talk, and onto the team for this week. So with my team, I'm seriously thinking about wildcarding, or I was anyway, especially after that lunchtime kickoff on Saturday. I think at that point, whenever you have a bit of a nightmare, and I'm sure there's other people out there who also had a nightmare with Liverpool. I think every time you have something like that, you just want to scrap your whole team and start again. But as the weekend went on and I saw the players' fixtures for the next week, I'm becoming more settled with how it looks. I've got one free transfer and zero point 0.6 million in the bank, and the obvious takeout would be Son. But like I said, I feel like he's been really unlucky, and Spurs are actually playing well, and they have done well against Man City in recent seasons. I'm not saying you captain someone like Son, but I do think he's the sort of player that could get a goal and assist against City. That combined with City conceding against Villa and Newcastle and Palace, it makes me think their defence can be gotten at, and there are goals to be had for Spurs in this game. I do believe that. So, in addition to this, if Son was to come out, I've only got one free transfer, so I won't be able to use any of the funds for upgrading elsewhere unless I take a hit, which, to be honest, I'm not that desperate to take a hit for this, especially because I'm going to be wildcarding in a couple of weeks, I would have thought. Um, so it comes down to, can I find anyone that I think is going to score a lot more this week than him? The potential options could include Rashford, Sterling, but then I'm thinking, am I going to want these players for the next couple of weeks? I'm not 100% sure on when I'm going to wildcard. I am sort of leaning towards not wildcarding for this week. And I'm not against just rolling a transfer for more flexibility the week afterwards. I think I could take out Son the week after and upgrade to someone like Haaland in attack. I have got the funds for that still, as long as all the prices kind of stay similar. But let me know what you think. I'm kind of at a point where it's real up and down at the moment. And, if Tony hadn't scored that hat trick, my game week would have been an absolute disaster. And I might be thinking, um, of wild carding, which is really just shows how close it is and how careful you need to be in letting emotions dictate how you play the game. Sometimes you have to take a step back and just regroup. I'm captain Salah at the moment. I think Wolves at home is a great fixture. Vice captain Tony, I don't think it's going to change. But let me know what you think. Can you see any moves I can make? Would you take out Son? And if so, who would you bring in for him? And yeah, thank you very much for listening. Appreciate any support, and I will see you in the next one.